Thank you for joining this session. I'm Marshal Cohen, Chief Retail Analyst at the NPD Group. One quick note, any questions you may have during this discussion or after, email spring@housewares.org. I have the distinct honor today to be joined by Mark Tritton, President and CEO of Bed Bath & Beyond. I considered myself a pretty good merchant in my past as a retailer until I met Mark. He's the great one. 2020 was certainly a year to remember, forget, respect, learn, and understand that the home industry was one of the few lucky ones that saw consumer demand reach record heights. The home industry is running up 27% with a peak of over 50% during the early pandemic period. Compare that to the fashion industries that saw declines as low as 60% down and have still yet to recover. Welcome, Mark. It's been a little over a year since you took the helm at Bed Bath & Beyond. Did you ever imagine the Beyond would look like this past year?
I don't think anybody could see that. And thank you for that generous introduction, Marshall. Like, when I took the role, I knew that I was in for, a long haul of transformation and change, and had a very clear vision for what we wanted to do and really laid down those pipes very early pre-COVID in pre-March 2020. But in my wildest dreams, I couldn't, expect that I would have to navigate these very, very choppy waters. And it's been an incredible year of change within our organization that we were fashioning, and then that accelerated change that we had to create as a response to the pandemic.
So this past year was unique. It was challenging and it was opportunistic all at the same time. Right? Order sales in the home industry grew 10% in the past 6 months. The pandemic forced many retailers to pivot in order to survive. Not only in terms of how to keep associates and customers safe, but also in terms of the products and services offered. How did Bed Bath & Beyond tackle these challenges, all while executing your transformation agenda?
Yeah, I like the way you said earlier, you had to kind of respect, understand, and kind of master the moment. And I think for us, it wasn't about cowering in the corner. It was actually going on the offense and leaning into the plans that we'd set. And, I'd set the stage by saying that coming into the business, an exceptional brand with great guest love, customer love and support, but it kind of lost its way. And as you dug in, the foundations of the house were a little shaky. The disciplines, the vision, the strategy, the operations, the talent. And we really needed to do an extreme makeover here anyway, which is why I was attracted to the opportunity and wanted to participate in what I think could be, an incredible turnaround and a really strong story. So we began to fashion our strategy around going back to understanding our customer, our business, the market, our competition, really going back to those fundamentals. And I think that grounding ourselves in those things really helped us weather the storm. We knew where we were going as a North Star, despite what we had to navigate. Now, how we got there, destination check, journey, let's be agile here and learn as we go. And so I think that you raise a great point. You not only had to transform the business, but the safety and protection of our associates, our customers, and our communities became at the forefront of everything we did, as well as the fundamentals like the liquidity of your company and pivoting from this kind of survival mode very initially to how are we going to come out of this? Not how are we going to exist, how are we going to come out of it, how are we going to thrive, how are we going to accelerate some of the existing plans that we wanted to put into play.
Before I go to the next question, I want to ask you this question. It just popped into my head. Do you ever wake up one day and say, what the heck? I just took this huge challenge and now they throw this global crisis in on top of it. Did you ever sit there and wake up and go, what the heck is going on here?
Well, I think that I knew I was being tested, but I knew society was. So I didn't feel alone in that one, I would tell you. But no, I was really clear when I left. I knew when I left Target which I respected so highly and still do, have a lot of love for the brand and the company, even though they're a competitor. I knew what equity, and I worked with you on that in terms of the data that drove the customer to our store, that built the basket, that created discovery and created growth. And so I had some of those elements, not all those elements, but I had very different assets as well. The singularity of an authority in a category that no one really owns singularly in the US market. We all play, but who owns and dominates? And I'm a data junkie. So the data sets you free. I knew them Bed Bath as a competitor, and then I doubled down on the data to show me what this business was about. So we were number one in terms of customer perception for all bedrooms, all bathrooms, laundry, storage, and all. Yet our sales were declining and our share was declining. So when things were a little bit rocky, I was like, hang on a minute, the customer loves us and we're just not realizing the potential of the business. And I'd been through that rodeo before and it had come out in a great way. And I was thoroughly convinced in what we were doing. And we were cash rich, so I knew we were stable. So I felt tested, but I never, ever felt defeated.
That's a great way to look at it. So let's shift focus for a second and talk about executing on the transformation. You talk a lot about Bed Bath & Beyond's role as the home authority. Would you please elaborate on that for us?
Yeah, look, I think I mentioned a little earlier, our goal is to be the home authority. And when I looked at the marketplace, I thought there were lots of players, but no one definitively owned that. And when we looked at how we were going after the business, I thought we were very transactional, very item focused, very moment focused. And we were losing meaning in terms of what are we here for? How do we serve our customers and the greater community? And I firmly believe that we needed to reroute ourselves in a purpose-driven organization, defining our customer value proposition, our reason for being, and also then how can that be customer inspired, really meeting the needs of the customers now and beyond. And one of the joys of this space, and remembering Bed Bath & Beyond is an enterprise that has several companies. We did have 9, we now have 4. So we've honed down our core. In the core businesses we kept them because they had a raison d'etre. They had a specific purpose that we could define and drive on their own, but also connect the dots through data and engagement to drive even more effectiveness for our customer. And so our purpose as we derived, and going back to that core ethos, was to make it easy for customers to feel at home. And so they could bring solutions and magic to every one of their rooms that they wanted to work on. And so simply galvanizing our point of view around our purpose, and then listening to our customer and talking to them and understanding what they need and where they were shopping and how they were behaving, I think got us incredibly ready for the COVID moment, because we're intuitively tapped into how are customers behaving, what are they need, and we're in service of the customer. And, I've had the great fortune to work with some fantastic companies like Nordstrom and Target that are very customer centric, and it's in my DNA. And I think that we all then double down on not the politics or the change management, but the customer and the authority grounded us in our purpose and what we're trying to do.
So talk a little bit about, there are a lot of vendors that are going to be listening in on this call. So why don't we just share a little bit of what you're thinking about as far as working with the vendors and vendor partnerships, and maybe even touch on some branding strategy that you're working with.
Yeah, I think that, I think we're much more transparent, we're much more inclusive, and we're much more partner orientated than we've ever been. You know me, Marshall, that's how I operate. And we were not that way in the past. We were very decentralized in terms of our buying and shipping decisions. Stores were controlling a large amount of the purchasing power. That meant I felt we were really difficult partners, shipping to every single store in individual POs. No one wants to do that. That's costly, time effective. I think that passed through to us in terms of a cost, but it made us a tricky partner. I think sitting down at the table and talking more regularly about who we wanted to be as a company and how we wanted to evolve and how they could help us forge that purpose, not just so we could achieve our goals, but they could achieve theirs. And sitting down and doing joint business plans. We hadn't done that. So JBPs, doing that with our top vendors and creating a sense of destiny and pathway with each of our partners. We want all the boats to rise. And I think it's a market where vendors are looking for a diverse portfolio of retailers they can work with, and they're looking for growth vehicles and engines. And I think we wanted to be clear on why we were one of those. But I also say, Marshall, I think there's some just like truth telling that needed to occur in that. I think people lost perspective that we were the number one home retailer and that we were over a $10 or $11 billion business in our composite group, and that, you know, we had over 1,000 stores across America, and we touched so many Americans in the home and were so beloved. So I think regrounding us in the truth of our business as it was, but also the potential that lay ahead, has been a distinct drive in our strategy, because we can't do it alone, and we want to do it with fabulous partners. It did also mean the editing of those partners. We were very bloated. We were something for everybody, but not, you know, meaningful for many. And I think that through the curation of our assortment, the curation of our vendors, and the focus of our strategy and communications, we want to build stronger bonds and clarity about the pathway ahead.
Previously, you and I developed a very strong tool that we used looking at how to build what we called category headquarters, where you owned the category. How do you feel about that for Bed Bath & Beyond?
I am passionate about that. You know, I think let's just go through what we talked about. You know, it's no coincidence that when we sat down and did the math, we were able to re-educate actually our own team on who we were, who we competed with, what our strengths were, and what our opportunities were. And we quickly established that in bed, bath, kitchen, and storage and org, that we were number one in perception, but we had failing sales and share. And so we had the customer love, but we didn't have the customer win. And so there creates the spread. Now, then you double down the data and you find out who we're losing the share to, what is the category, subcategory, what are the growth initiatives, what are the priorities. Now, you cast forward to our own brand strategy and the curation of the rooms. What are we leading with? Bed. What are we following up with? Bath. What are we following up with? Opening price point, then kitchen, and then storage and all. It's a very deliberate, data-driven insight that leads the pagination of change and growth in our store and digitally and through assortment, as well as our attack. So you and I did a lot of work on breaking down every dollar unit value where we drop or we gain, and how do you fortify and how do you attack? And we've deployed that attitude, that strategy, on a really meaningful basis. Joe Hartzig, our new Chief Merchandising Officer, joined a year ago, took those reins. He came from Walgreens. He knew that playbook too. And so we've had this fantastic role to play in transformation, all my leadership and myself included, which is data as a hub, but coaching and mentoring everybody against this new methodology. And we have come absolute light years in a year's time.
Well, it's been an incredible transformation. It's been great. All right, let's talk digital strategy. Digital's to talk about town lately. Early on in the pandemic, I continued my store tour. Instead of physically going into stores, I had to, like everyone else, do it from a virtual environment. And I would order the same products from a variety of retailers, testing their ability to execute efficiently on every occasion. The first box I received was from Bed Bath & Beyond. In other words, every time I ordered the same thing from several people, the first one to get it to me was Bed Bath & Beyond. Sometimes in the same day as the Amazon Prime package, and that was a service that I had to pay additional for. So not only was it an amazing thing that you were able to execute in such a short period of time and in such an important time of need, during the early days of COVID, consumers were hungry for purchases to be received in a timely fashion. Online sales grew 58% and are now 48% of sales in the home sector. So think about this. We've grown from 35% a year ago all the way up to 48% and peaked at 58. So really an amazing thing to see. So share with us your vision for the digital and the strategy to integrate stores and online. How are those two connected?
Yeah, look, I mean, definitely had been through those transformations much earlier. I mean, back in, I think it was 2010, while I was at Nordstrom, we integrated inventory to be a single platform. I mean, very innovative back then, and utilized that as an opportunity to service customers. I went through that whole transformation at Target, and it paid dividends about immediacy. And so when I came in, again, let's put in situation what I started with and how we migrated. And again, it was fortuitous that we made the strategic changes very, very early that we did, and it enabled us through the COVID period. I think that each of the leaders had individual strategies. They didn't work cooperatively on those. We worked in silos. Our digital business was treated as a standalone business, a profit center on its own. It wasn't fully integrated. The storytelling, the value, the communication, the category thrust, everything was completely separate. No one was working closely on that. And through my background, I saw that as a huge opportunity. But, you know, I remember sitting down and looking at maybe 8 work streams around different digital ideas and business driver ideas that were not cohesive. And I pointed to one and said, we're just going to stop and we're going to focus on one thing. And that one thing, which we did not have, was BOPUS. BOPUS. It was just such a fundamental ease and convenience driver for the customer, and engages them much more easily. And you can operate on a wider field with the range of inventory wherever it sits. So great statistic that 95% of our sales to date have been generated out of a 25-mile radius of a Bed Bath & Beyond store. So when we talk digital, I didn't change the conversation to omni. Omni always became our mantra. Why? Because you buy online and pick up in store. Is that a digital order or a store-based order? It's a great order. It's a customer experience. And the whole enterprise enables that ease and convenience. Like, we know that you know, a large chunk of our orders, about 75% of our orders, are packed and ready to share with the customer within an hour. Now, we have a 2-hour promise, but we know that that's how efficient we are. So what we quickly pivoted to was saying, how do we make this a singular focus, accelerate our technology, our in-store setup, our stores fulfill behavior, everything towards this one goal. Then COVID hit. And we were able to actually impact that in late April and introduce it to the customers. And it was a godsend. And it also freed up all that trapped inventory in all those doors to actually, you know, meet the customer need. And I think we gained a lot of goodwill out of that. So we had this kind of swiftness, and we're imperfect on the shipping piece. So, you know, it's been a rocky year, I think, for everybody. But we were able to really gain a huge amount of trust and engagement because I see it, I can go get it, and I'm happy. In a period where people's synapse of, I don't want to be out and about, I want to be safe, I want what I want, and I'm in my home, became really, really important. So it was a zeitgeist that we truly tapped into, and then it is where COVID was the accelerator against the existing strategy that turned out incredibly well for us. And I think it's sticky going forward.
Absolutely. All right, so let's shift to branding and the concept of brands. You were so successful in your past with designing and developing brands. Some even became billion-dollar brands in a 12-month period of time, an unheard of thing. How do you envision this own brand concept within the home sector and for Bed Bath & Beyond?
Yeah, I use the word own brand very definitively, not private label. And the reason why is I'm not just slapping a label on a product so we can make a bit of extra margin. I'm actually building an idea, not an item, right? So I always talk about items punctuated. So ideas punctuated by great items. And so in each of the brands that I've built over my career, I mean, when I worked to great brands like Nike wasn't about, I want to sell a shoe. They wanted to sell a vision of their brand that could connect with customers, and that any item or experience would fit into that. And that's a great training ground on how you operate and how you think. And I brought that through all of my different roles and brands that I've worked on. And so the idea that if you want to be, firstly, an authority in your space, you have to have something unique and ownable. And when you can design it to cost and price it and upgrade the quality and invest in it specifically for the customer that you know through data and engagement, that's a gift. And so you get that unique ecosystem of data, customer, insight, brand, product, and then the circle continues. And so in coming into Bed Bath & Beyond, what I saw is we had about 9% of our sales being generated out of private labels we didn't have own brands. And I watched them competitively from my previous space. Some really great ideas like Bee and Willow, which we're going to really nurture. I was nervous as a competitor. And then I saw the execution and the ideology and the strategy really falter. It wasn't caressed, it wasn't supported, it wasn't a 360 approach. And so bringing all that expertise to Bed Bath & Beyond from my experiences and my team's experiences now to say, how do we build brands that create differentiation? Google it all you want, you'll only find it at Bed Bath & Beyond or Bye Bye Baby. That you then create a preference. And I was really struck when I first joined Target in 2016, the media was saying to me, why did you bother? Like, there's Amazon and there's Walmart. Why do you need Target? And I said, because Target has latent love, and we're going to bring the Target back to Target, and we're going to do it through the thing they love, which is people buy product and they want experiences in store and online. They want to be informed and engaged. And we did that ferociously for 3.5 years with great results. And it was no different here. We lacked those really unique and ownable vehicles to drive preference and therefore differentiation and loyalty. And in the home space, again, looking at the data, Marshall, if you take each of those categories, the national brand, if we're talking about cleaning, I'm talking about Dyson, I'm talking about Sharp, absolutely. I'm talking about KitchenAid, and I'm talking about Breville and SodaStream in kitchenware. But if I'm talking bed and bath, who are my national brand competitors I absolutely have to have? And who are customers buying? And the research shows they're buying the quality brands from, vertically. And so just a huge opportunity for us. And then the ancillary is there's a lot of margin in those hills when you do it directly and you design to cost. And so I am so proud of the work that we're doing and that we're setting sail on with these unique brands. I have some of them above me here that are really built with an ethos and an idea, and they're not labels, they're brands, and we will be treating them as such. Social, marketing, digital, physical, total 360 experiences, not just on launch, but perpetually. So a big pivot in terms of inspired by customer, against our purpose, but really driving that authority.
It's really great to see because if you haven't visited a store, you should, not you, but the audience. and what's interesting is it is amazing to see the transformation and the use of brands in doing so. And not only is it the store presentation, but I made a few notes while you were talking. The staff is so much more knowledgeable, so much more authentic, so much more enthusiastic. It's an amazing thing to see. The mix of product, the mix of brand, the mix of lifestyle has all been elevated. So you've done an amazing job there. And don't rule out the value equation is still exists.
Right.
Even with elevating the brand. So you've done a great job of keeping the value there. So I just wanted to compliment to your team who's really executing that. All right.
Thank you, Marshall. I mean, I think also too, we see the cumulative sum benefit as these roll through. Come back by October, November, and you'll see even greater than you Bed Bath & Beyond. And I love that you mentioned value there, because this is, an intersection of our discussion so far. Let's talk about, the role of data, the role of categories, and the role of our brand. One of our data points showed us that in the kitchen business, about 50% of that business is done at opening price point across the country. You think about spatulas and bowls. We had zero assortment at opening price point, and we wanted to be an authority in the home. And there was 50% of the business we had. We introduced a new brand coming in April, May, called Simply Essential, that across the categories of our business addresses both the competition and the customer need with insights, that opening price. But that's incremental business. We were sending that customer out the door before saying, we're not actually a true authority, we're a partial authority in kitchen. Go shop somewhere else for these things. Now we have that nested into our assortment. So very exciting pivots, and expressing value with clarity was one of our opportunities. The customer told us that. We've done that through in-store signage, communication, online, as well as the construction of these items.
That's a great segue into the next question. As you mentioned, the pivoting to the brand to be a holistic view from the different values. What's in the beyond for Bed Bath & Beyond? All right, beyond, after the 4 stages of retail recovery that I talk about, that'll get us through holiday 21. What do you see the home sector and Bed Bath & Beyond looking like in 2022?
Yeah, there's a lot of conjecture around this. And again, we're using insights, trends, data to help us format our point of view here. I think the market, the home growth has been tremendous, and it has been driven with a lot of tailwinds around big ticket items like sofas and dining tables and redoing rooms, and definitely home improvement we've seen become, a major benefit. But our world is more the discretionary world, and we feel like that we've had truly more headwinds against being able to showcase our assortment and engage the customer. And in the early part of 2020, our numbers were really moved by essentials and cleaning really driving the behavior. And what we've seen quarter by quarter is that grow into, people stare at their 4 walls, they say, my bedroom needs a refresh. We're in the discretionary category business. And so I see that as being incredibly buoyant. We see muscle behaviors that have been built now in how customers shop by app, digital, and 360 ease and convenience options, as well as what they're shopping for. And so we feel that from what we see, that the home has become a very, very cherished space. We did some work on happiness as a concept, and it was very interesting to see that the 2 kind of big areas that create an exponential amount of sense of happiness for individuals. Number 1 was mental health, and the second was home. And that was in 2019, and it was also true at the end of 2020. And we think it's even more important that home helps to define our sense of not only comfort and joy, but also safety. And so for us, we feel like in 2021 and beyond, that is not a flash in the pan moment. It's a sustainable trend that will be around for a long time, the deepening of the cocooning moment. And as people move from inside their house, we think they're going to move into their backyards in summer. They're going to have friends over. You and I have talked about this, entertaining, engagement in the home, celebrating being together. It doesn't mean that you have to go to a restaurant or to a park. People are going to go to their backyards or in their apartments. And so celebration, engagement, and expression of self through home becomes a perpetual trend that I think is great for our business, but we are geared with more vehicles to address that in 2021 and beyond. We're excited about that pathway.
You're getting me to be excited about the future sector too, because what you're really doing is you're laying the foundation for all the things that we've been doing over the past challenged year is only going to carry forward. And a lot of the investments that we've made in the products that we've bought, we're going to keep using them. We're not going to just
absolutely
not going to just change our lifestyle. So that's been great. So that's all the time we have for this session. Any questions you would like to submit, please send to spring@housewares.org. I'd like to thank Mark for joining us. What a great treat to have answered some questions in this virtual environment. And thank you to the IHA for hosting us. All of us in the industry appreciate the value and content from this event. On behalf of Mark Tritton and all of us at NPD and Bed Bath & Beyond, I'm Marshal Cohen, and we thank you for joining us. And hey, stay safe out there.